Today, we're diving into one of the coolest, most elegant systems in your entire body, the Bohr effect. Honestly, it's this brilliant biological solution that makes sure your muscles get exactly what they need the moment they need it, all without you ever having to think about it. I mean, really think about that for a second. You go from sitting on the couch to sprinting for the bus. Almost instantly, your body knows to send a flood of extra oxygen right to your leg muscles. How? How does it know where to send it? You're not thinking about it, right? It's all automatic, and it's incredibly smart. So, this brings up a really fundamental challenge for the body. You see, it's not enough to just have oxygen floating around in your blood. You've got to get it to the right places at the right time. Your brain, your heart, your muscles during a workout, they all have totally different and constantly changing demands.
Yeah, you can think of your red blood cells as these little delivery trucks, just packed with oxygen. But they can't just go around dumping their cargo on any random street corner. They need a local signal, like a big flashing neon sign at the cellular level that screams, "Hey, over here, we're working hard. We need that oxygen now."
And that's where this amazing system comes in. The solution to that whole delivery problem, the thing that provides that exact signal, is what we call the Bohr effect. It's the mechanism that perfectly coordinates oxygen delivery with your body's real-time needs. So, what is it exactly? Well, to put it simply, the Bohr effect is all about how hemoglobin, that's the protein in your red blood cells carrying the oxygen, changes its grip on that oxygen depending on how acidic its local environment is. And that change in pH, well, that's the trigger. Okay, so if a change in pH is the signal, what's causing that change? Let's trace it back. Let's look at how your own muscles basically send out an SOS for more oxygen. It is such a beautiful chain reaction. When your muscles work hard, they create waste products, right? Things like carbon dioxide and lactic acid. Both of those release hydrogen ions into the area. And those hydrogen ions are the key. More hydrogen ions make things more acidic, which means the local pH drops. That drop in pH is the signal. It's the message that tells hemoglobin, okay, time to let go of the oxygen. And this is what makes the whole system so incredibly responsive. The main byproduct of your muscles doing work, that carbon dioxide, is the very thing that triggers the delivery of the fuel they need more of. So the harder you work, the more CO2 you make, and the stronger that signal gets to release even more oxygen. It's just a perfect feedback loop. So, the signal is sent. The pH drops. But now, how does our delivery truck, hemoglobin, actually respond to it? How does it loosen its grip and drop off that oxygen? This is the really cool part. When hemoglobin runs into that more acidic environment, those extra hydrogen ions literally cause the protein to change its physical shape. Scientists call this its conformation. It shifts into what's known as the tense state, and this new shape is just not as good at holding onto oxygen. It's like its hands get slippery, it becomes leaky, but in a very, very good way. And this really shows you that hemoglobin has this kind of dual personality. Up in the lungs, where the pH is higher, its affinity for oxygen is super high. Its job is to grab onto oxygen and hold it tight for the ride. But down in your working tissues where that pH drops, its affinity plummets. Its job completely flips to letting that oxygen go. It's a molecular shapeshifter, perfectly designed for two very different but equally vital jobs. We can actually visualize this on a graph. So, at a normal resting body pH of about 7.4, take a look. In your resting tissues, where the oxygen pressure is maybe around 40 millimeters of mercury, your hemoglobin is still about 75% full. It's holding onto its oxygen reserves pretty tightly, just in case. But now, check out what happens when the pH drops to 7.2, like during a tough workout. This causes what we call a rightward shift of the curve. And look, at that exact same oxygen pressure of 40, your hemoglobin is now only 60% saturated. It has let go of way more of its oxygen. And that difference, that is everything. Going from 75% full down to 60%, that 15% gap is pure extra oxygen delivered right to your muscles. And it's all thanks to the Bohr effect. There was no command from the brain needed, it just happened automatically, all because of the local chemistry. Incredible. Okay, so we've got the mechanism down. Now let's look at a few real-world examples to see just how critical this effect is, not just for performance, but for survival. During a really hard workout, This is the Bohr effect in beast mode. You're churning out tons of CO2 and lactate. The pH in your muscles is plummeting, and that causes a huge rightward shift in the curve. The result is just a flood of oxygen being dumped from your blood right where you need it most, fueling those hard-working muscles. But here's a curveball. The system can sometimes work against you. What happens if you start breathing too fast or too deep, what we call hyperventilation? You might think, hey, more breathing means more oxygen for my muscles, but it's not quite that simple. So when you hyperventilate, you actually blow off too much carbon dioxide. This makes your blood less acidic, raising the pH and causing a left shift of the curve. Now, hemoglobin's grip on oxygen actually gets tighter. It holds on stronger, which makes it harder for it to unload oxygen to your muscles. So you can have plenty of oxygen in your blood, but it's basically stuck there, unable to get out. Now, at high altitude, things get even more interesting. The air's thin, so there's less oxygen. Your body's natural response is to hyperventilate to try and get more. This, again, raises your pH and shifts that curve to the left. But here, it's actually a clever trade-off. The good news is that the tighter grip helps your hemoglobin grab onto the few precious oxygen molecules that are available in your lungs. The downside, of course, is that it makes it a little bit harder to release that oxygen in your tissues. The body is always playing this balancing act. You know, when you step back and you look at all this, you just realize what an incredibly sophisticated and perfectly tuned system this is. This quote just nails it. That's really the whole story. The Bohr effect is the body's chief logistics officer for oxygen. It makes sure that supply is always matching demand, moment by moment, cell by cell. Tissues working hard get more fuel. Tissues that are resting conserve it. And that really is the magic of it all. It's not run by some central command center in your brain. It is completely automatic, driven entirely by local conditions. And it's so sensitive to the tiniest changes in chemistry. It's just a breathtakingly efficient way to manage your body's most vital resource. So we've seen how this drop in pH is this brilliant signal to deliver more oxygen. But it leaves us with one last fascinating question to think about. What happens when that signal gets too loud? When the buildup of acid gets so intense that even though it's helping release oxygen, the acid itself starts to get in the way and cause fatigue. That's where the story of performance and its limits really begins.